Hello and welcome to another episode of Top Deck, the series where we take a look at some of the leading TCG deck lists. This time we have Cormac Adams' 6th place deck list from the Irish Open, which took place over the last weekend, and this time he was playing Pendulum FTK. So we saw him playing Pendulum Magicians before, this time the FTK variant, so I think this is the first time we've actually seen it on the channel. So as per usual, I'll run through the list, go over the rounds and the side deck strategy, and then we'll bring him on to have a chat about the deck and the event. So we start off with a triple Dark One, a double Gate Zero and one Gate Infinity, 3 Astrograph and 1 Stargazer, 3 Chronograph and 1 Time Gazer, 3 Black Fang, 3 Harmonizing, 3 Purple Poison, 1 Jiangqi, triple Mythical Beast Master Cerberus and 2 Jackal King, then 1 Pendulum Graph, triple Desires, triple Dragon Shrine, 1 Foolish, 2 Allure of Darkness, and the 1 Instant Fusion to enable the FTK, so remember that is searchable. For the extra, the 1 Lyrilusk, 1 Vortex, you need 2 Supreme Starving Venoms in order to enable the FTK, 1 Omega, 1 Clearwing, 1 Dweller, 1 Harbinger, 1 Absolute, 1 Tornado, 1 Borreload, double Electromite, 1 Underclock, and 1 Zephyr Metaltron. For the side deck, a lot of hand traps in here, so we got triple Ash Blossom, triple Ghost Ogre, and triple Winter Cherries. Then triple Twin Twisters, because you need to be able to push through all of the back row heavy decks and all of those cards being sided in against you. And triple Caught by the Grave for when you're going first, and you know your opponent's going to have hand traps when they've sided against you playing the FTK build. For the rounds that he played, round 1 against Trickstar, he lost 1-2. Round 2 against ABC, he went 2-1. Round 3 against 60 card Dino, he went 2-0. Round 4 against BA, he went 2-0. Round 5 against 60 card Dino, he went 2-0. Round 6 against True Draco, he went 2-0. And round 7, he went 2-1. So just the single loss in the first round by that 1-2 loss, which is a bit unfortunate, but it does happen. So taking an X1, putting him into 6th place. So for the siding strategy that he went with, so against Pendulum Magicians, against every deck that you're going to see, when going first, he's siding in the triple Caught by the Grave and taking out 1 Purple, 1 Jiangqi, and 1 Shrine, because you still enable yourself to be very consistent with those small reductions in the essentially a monster count there, and you are more able to push through the sort of hand traps that can actually stop you from playing. So going second against Pendulum Magician, he's got the 3 Ogres in and 3 Cherries, obviously because you need to be able to deal with the Electromite. And this is the typical side out that you'll see from him is 2 Allure, 1 Infinity, 1 Instant, 1 Jiangqi, and 1 Shrine for when you're going second. So then against Trickstar, again, the 3 called in as per usual for going first, and for going second you need 3 Ash to deal with the Reincarnation, and 3 Twin. This doesn't really stop the first Reincarnation, but there are some scenarios where you can deal with back row, because it does become a very reliant on back row sort of deck when you're going against Trickstar in some scenarios. For 60 card, same first strategy, but for going second, he's got 3 Caught by the Grave and 3 Ash going in to deal with the grass, and then Called can obviously bait out snow and break up combos, which is pretty nice. For against Mech Knight Invoked, the same first strategy, and for going second, Ashes to stop the searching, which is really important, and then triple Twin Twisters in here as well. Going against True Draco, the typical going first list, and then for going second, the 3 Ash to stop all the draw cards, and 3 Twisters in order to take out all of the floodgates that you're going to have to face. Then that's it for the siding strategy, so let's bring on Cormac to have a chat about the deck. Hi Cormac, how are you doing?
Hi, doing very well, thank you very much.
Great, congratulations on getting 6th place at the Irish Open. First of all, how did you find the event?
I found the event, it was really well-run event. It was a lot different from a lot of our normal Irish events because it was a good bit bigger. Most Irish events are sort of under 100 except for our nationals. So it was like much bigger than usual, and also we had a lot of good people coming over for this event.
Yeah.
So it made it much more competitive than most normal Irish events would have been. So it was a really good testing ground, because we kind of have like a lack of YCSs, and we need something good to test for our nationals. So yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool opportunity. The open system that they're going with.
Yeah, no, Dan was really he organised it really well. I was talking with him throughout the entire process, and the amount of work he put in. It was just great that it worked out so well on the day because he deserved it so much. So big props to him.
Is it the same Dan from last time, from the Dublin one?
Yeah, no, he helped organise the Furhouse Regional that I had a deck profile of up on this channel as well before. He helps run a lot of the bigger Irish events in the country. He's also one of the most well-known judges around. If anybody would know Dan Neville, I'm pretty sure some people who watch this video probably know who he is. He's around everywhere. Yeah, he's a really good guy.
Sure. Well, it's great that he's managed to do this then. All right. Well, we better actually get into the deck itself then.
Yeah, of course.
So I think this is actually the first Pendulum FTK list that we've had on the channel.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, so it's slightly interesting for me because I've only really seen them on other channels and not had the full introduction to them before. But obviously it's based very much on the same mechanic. I've seen how it works, and I'm sure everyone who's watching this video knows the combo in general.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's very standard by this point.
Yeah. So only question I think I've got one or two questions from the main. The first one is you went with the one Janky Magician, which do you want to explain the choice of that then?
Yeah, sure, of course. So what we found when we were testing the deck originally was that there just wasn't enough good Dark Pendulum monsters. So there was a lot of times where we were playing in the region of about sort of 25 monsters because we were originally just sort of copying some of the other decks, the original FTK decks. And we were playing things like Pendulum Call, and we were cutting down the number of purple poisons and no Jiangxi. What we found is that there just wasn't enough times where we just didn't have enough dark monsters to summon. So it was just a case of just getting every good dark Pendulum monster we could into the deck.
Yeah.
And also the fact that it's summonable off Harmonizing as a level 7.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It comes up fairly often if you don't FTK, to be able to make Vortex.
Yeah.
And also, it's just really strong against the Trickstar and the Mech Knight Invoke decks. And also 60 cards. You can just stick it on the board, even going second, and then you can just continue on your plays and negate a Mechada or a Snow or a Candina or anything like that. So it's actually just sort of another pseudo negate in and of itself.
Yeah.
So it had enough decent applications. The one thing was that we couldn't find any other good high-scale dark monsters.
Okay.
So because the fact that double Iris is banned, that's kind of a big problem. The only real good high-scales we have are the Black Fang, the Harmonizing, the Chronograph, because the Time Gazer you need to have no monsters to have in your scale.
Yeah.
So if there was any way to have a high scale instead of Jiangxi, I would have probably played it instead, but if needs must, it was the sort of extra monster we threw in, but it had enough utility where it was warranted to play in the deck.
Yeah, sure. And so because you want that high scale in the future, do you think there are changes that you can make to the deck to enable that? I mean, obviously the actual monster doesn't exist, but I guess you can have draw cards or search cards.
Well, that was the reason why we played the 1-star Pendulum Graph at the end, because we were originally playing 3 copies of Allure of Darkness, because that was what every FTK deck was doing.
Yeah.
But every time I was testing with 3 Allure, we found that it wasn't really getting us what we needed in the deck. We needed a high scale more often than not, because you get the 0 scale incredibly easily with this deck.
Yeah.
But so often you're using your Chronograph as a starter card to get you a special summon to make your Electromart.
Okay.
So it was fairly difficult to get a good high scale. So what happened is that we would be playing 3 Allure, and we would be digging for these high scales. But so more often than not, you would just draw into more Dragon Shrines and more things like that. So we decided rather than play the 3rd Allure, we would play something that more often than not will trigger, because even though you're not playing Wisdom Eye, if you just link for an Electromite with the Time Gazer or Stargazer, you summon off Astro Chrono, you then get access to your high scale. And if you do have a high scale, you then have your Harmonizing, which just gives you an extra monster to use for your FTK.
Yeah, sure, okay. So it's sort of it's the pseudo high scale then, having that Pendulum Graph, basically.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. That's basically the idea.
Sure. And yeah, I think, this is just me thinking, but it's pretty much the case that all of your spells are just digging for an extra monster then, as well. Apart from Instant Fusion.
Yeah, of course, that's it. Yeah, apart from Instant Fusion. We decided to play one of that because, well, it's the FTK and you need to play it, but we didn't play more of it because the idea was that it's searchable, so if you can search it, you're going to FTK, but if not, you don't want to have any sort of brick cards in your hand, like any chance of opening multiple, we wanted to just reduce that. We wanted to be as consistent as possible because we wanted to have the 3 dragon shrines and the foolish to always see dark room. But with the things like the desires and the allures, there's chances you're going to draw multiples of those. So chances of drawing like multiples of those or multiples instant fusions, you wanted to sort of cut down on that as much as possible. And even if you can't FTK, like say if you have to activate desires first and banish your instant fusion, more often than not, if you do that early enough and you know that you can't FTK, you still set up a board of 2 to 3 negates, and the more often than not that wins anyway. So.
You're still playing Pendulum even without the FTK. So.
Exactly, yeah, that was the idea. Like we wanted to make as few changes to the deck as possible from the standard version, so that like even if you don't FTK, you're still probably winning anyway.
Yeah, sure.
Basically.
Cool. Okay, so are there any changes that you'd make to the main deck then, following the event?
To the main deck, I'm not quite sure. In the past sort of like couple of hours or so, I've seen all the lists coming out of YCS Memphis, and I've been noticing a lot of people have been playing 3 Allure, and I would like to fit in the 3rd one. There were times when I was testing it did sort of like kind of clog a little bit, because unlike Desires, which even if you do draw Desires off Desires, you still like just basically upset because you just got another monster. With the Allure, if you like activate Allure and you draw Allure and another monster, you're still not going like +1 off that. You're still banishing a good resource to get to that, and it's like not like, even though neither of those things are guaranteed. Like Desires, I feel like it was just a stronger card, but I would maybe try and find room for a 3rd Allure. I honestly wouldn't know what I would cut anything in this deck for at the moment.
Yeah, sure.
But there's probably a ban list soon, so I don't know if I have to think that much about it.
Yeah, who knows what the deck will look like after that.
Yeah, hopefully soon. I'm kind of sick of playing FTK at this stage. But yeah, no, I think the main deck was pretty solid.
Cool, yeah, okay. So going on to the extra then, it's pretty much just the stuff that you had last time and then stuff that enables the FTK.
Yeah, basically. Obviously, we're playing the 2 Starving Venom, but even if you weren't playing FTK, I'm still an advocate of playing 2 Starving Venom, because it's just more copies of your Electrum, and it lets you make the Hope Harbinger, which I think is one of the most underrated cards in the extra.
Yeah,
deck.
it's just so useful at the moment.
Because even going into boards against things like Draco, if they keep a diagram on board, you can still negate the effect of it while it's up on there. And just the fact that it's able to even like redirect attacks, or you could summon it alongside one of your rank 4s, crash it into it, and then beat over something like a Masterpiece. Because it will gain the attack. Because like some of these, like they sound like niche scenarios, but if you're playing just against what you presume to be the 2 main meta decks of Magician and Draco, which you probably should since the format is so defined, these things will come up more often than people would think. I would say the only things that I would maybe potentially change from the extra deck, Omega has like very rarely ever come up. It's just been in there because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to put in instead of it, and like there are niche situations where it happens. But I would say I would potentially consider putting in a 3rd Electromite instead of it, because there are times in playing the FTK, going first, you have to make 2 Electrums before you Pendulum summon, and then if somebody decides to hold their hand traps for your Starving Venoms or things such as that, in a grind game, then you've run out of your Electrums afterwards. So you're kind of struggling then, and if you run out of both your Starving Venoms. So maybe the 3rd one would come up in more scenarios there. I feel like it would be a bit more applicable than the Omega at the very least, but again, I'm not quite sure. But yeah, that was pretty much it.
And did you find yourself, was there anything that you felt was missing apart from the 3rd Electromite then, or did everything else do its job?
There was nothing that I wish I was playing instead of the in the extra deck. Like I would say only about maybe 10 of these cards came up throughout the course of the entire day. Like the Tornado Dragon would never come up, the Dweller didn't really come up because I never got to go first against Draco. I would just lose the dice roll, I would try and kill them, I would get away with it, and then if I went first I would FTK anyway. But I'm not quite sure. I've seen a couple of lists playing the Ignister again from Memphis, so I might consider putting that back in, because there are other like random scenarios where it might come in. I feel like it's a bit more applicable in the 4 negate deck when you're going second, because you can then just copy it with the Starving Venom, whereas sometimes even going second when you're playing this, you can still FTK using the Starving Venoms. But I might consider putting it back in. I cut it for this event because I wanted to play the Clear Wing, and I felt like they were more or less doing a similar job. But some people in the last year or 2 have explained some of the reasons behind why you would play the Ignister alongside it, and I think I might try put it back.
Yeah, sure. I think the fact that you get to sort of clear something and then make a Harbinger afterwards is always quite nice as well.
Yeah, that's the really strong thing about it as well, because we're playing the Harbinger, so like it's not just sitting there at the end of the turn, you can still make something good out of it.
Alright. Okay, so moving on to the side deck then. So we've gone through your side strategy already. So it's pretty much Called by the Grave for when you're going first, and then hand traps and dealing with stun aspects when you're going second then.
Yeah, basically, that was the idea. We were originally playing Evenly Matched instead of Called by the Grave until about Thursday night. There was myself and a couple of other teammates who were playing this deck pretty much card for card. Most of them ending up losing the last round, so it was unfortunate that we didn't have a few of us, but I still think the deck worked out fine. But I think what we found was that with Evenly Matched is that while it can be a blowout against Draco, almost every single Draco player that we were speaking to at the event were playing Imperial Iron Wall on the side. So we thought that there's a much higher chance of them drawing into the Imperial Iron Wall through all of their draw spells when we have the Evenly Match than there is of them hard opening the Amano Iwado as their first thing to stop us at using our Ash on their turn one. So we decided that, and also the fact that everybody's going to be siding in hand traps for the FTK once we know, once they know that we're playing it both side. Especially things like the Mirror are starting to side in cherries again now, and then Mekhnite Invoked and Trickster we're siding cherries anyway. That'll be the one thing that can kind of really hurt you, that and draw. Because you can play through Ash and Ogre if you have a decent enough hand, but the other two can really, really hurt you. So we needed Call by the Grave for those scenarios. Ironically enough, though, I didn't ever actually get to use Call by the Grave in a hand trap for this entire event. The only time I got to use it was in my last round, game 2 against True Draco, because I go first. I can't FTK, but I still have this card set. I make Vortex plus 38. He normal summons a Mano into my board, and I think that I'm just dead at this point. He activates Diagram, pops in a Mano in his hand, adds a spell card, sets 3, has 1 card in hand, and then once he sets 3, I flip my Call by the Grave to banish his Mana from his graveyard and negate the one on his board. So then he can't use his 38. He can't use his Demise because I'll negate it with 38, and then he scoops it. That was the only time he used it throughout the entire event. It was such a weird scenario, but yeah, it was pretty fun.
That's quite cool.
But yeah, besides that, I think I would keep it in because the theory was correct behind it. I just kind of got lucky enough that I didn't get hand trapped too much throughout the entire event, or if I did, I didn't really see this card in my hand. But I mean, you win some, you lose some sometimes. But yeah, no, I think the getting Called by the Grave is pretty good. I think I was happy enough not playing evenly, just because so many times I saw Draco player activate Duality and reveal an Iron Wall from the top 3 cards of the deck, and I was just so happy that I didn't have that card in my hand.
And also, I suppose in a sense, you know, because you're playing the FTK build, you don't really need to take out the board so much.
Yeah, of course, that's the thing. You don't have to worry too much about it, especially if you just open something like a Twin Twister. Because in both my Draco matchups post side, I would see the Twin Twister, and even just seeing one is usually fine enough because you clear their floodgate and more often than not their trap to tribute. And then even if they just have the Maiden on board, then they don't have any way to to tribute for their masterpiece then afterwards, and you can still just continue on with your turn. Both times I played against Draco post side, I opened Twin Twister and then I just OTK'd them that next turn through it. You didn't even need the FTK, you just OTK, so it's because you have you put so much on board anyway, especially with the clearing, because it clears the Maiden and might clear an Ignis if they have that on board as well.
Sure, okay. And as you were saying with the Imperial Iron Wall being so prevalent, were you then also glad that you weren't playing Cyclone instead of the Twin Twisters?
Yeah, definitely. I think Twin Twister, it does have its applications for things such as Darkroom, but more often than not that's not going to happen. But what it is mainly there for things such as the fact that they are going to be applying Iron Wall, so if they go activate Anti-Spell, chain Cosmic, then they chain Iron Wall, you just lose at that point. And also for the fact that against other random matchups such as Trickster, they're already playing the Reincarnation, so they already have the chance to do double Reincarnation draw on you. But they're also playing the things like the Scapegoats still side in the Solemn package if they're not maining it. A lot of them I've been seeing from Memphis as well are playing things such as Heavy Storm Duster and Transit Tribute. So even if they go double Reincarnation draw, once they flip the first Reincarnation, you can just chain your Twin Twister, hit the other Reincarnation, and the other life backer that they have, you'll still keep your hand at the end of it, and then they've used up all their background. You can probably just play through that board then, because they don't have much else that they can do, because their monsters very rarely actually kill you.
Yeah, that's true.
I say that, my only loss was the first round one, but anyway. I mean, the person I lost to was Vlad. He's probably the best trickster
Okay.
player I've ever seen. He came second. He's a very good player with that deck. All of us who were stayed over at Vlad's place the night before, who didn't sleep all top. Tim slept for 6 hours, but he finished 13th, so obviously sleep
that was his
good.
mistake.
But anyway, yeah, exactly.
Well,
But yeah, no, I think more or less everything here was pretty much fine. If I'd known I would play Zero Mirrors, I wouldn't have sniped Cherries,
Yeah.
but you can't plan for that. So, yeah, I think most of the side deck was pretty much
Okay.
fine. The Ogres and the Cherries never really came up. I sided the Ogres in for 60 card because I knew that he was playing Naturia Beast.
oh yeah.
So I wanted to have a way to out that, but I didn't see it, and he didn't make Naturia Beast,
Right,
so it was
okay.
fine anyway. Yeah, I think pretty much most of this is fairly standard. The only things I would maybe consider, I might swap out the Ogres for maybe Drolls in future.
Oh sure.
Because it hits enough things, such as the weird matchups with just Mech Knight Invoked and Trickster, which are ironically you're harder than Magician and Draco because they play so many hand traps to stop you FTKing. Even against the Trickster player that I played against, game 2 I made him go first because I knew there'd be no chance that I would FTK through 12 hand traps. So if I had something such as Droll, you can just stun them for a turn, and then just have open 5 Pendulum monsters, and you'll probably win anyway. But yeah, no, that's I think other than that, I thought the side was pretty fine. It was a little bit sort of last minute thrown together. We had a basic idea of it before when we were playing evenlies, and we were originally trying to get Cosmics, but we just came to the conclusion that Twin Twist was better. We also needed something for going first because the only times we lost going first was against the random matchups, just Trickster and Mech Knight Invoked. Sometimes 60 card if they side into their the third set of hand traps. So yeah, no, I think the build is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, in retrospect, the only when looking at some of the builds from the YCS just gone, a lot of them were fairly similar, just with the changes to the third allure. But one of them that stuck out to me was I think was Brendan Beckman's list. He played the FTK, but he also played all the cards for I think they're calling it the Adderall combo now, where you play Firewall and all this bunch of stuff. And I think that'd be something I'd be interested in trying out, because even if you don't FTK, you essentially FTK by setting up 4 negates. I didn't think there was a way to actually fit both of those deck types into one deck, but he made it work. Because one of my friends came over on the Thursday, and he brought from Scotland, Christoph, and he brought the Firewall version of the deck.
Yep.
And we spent a good probably 4 or 5 hours testing that version of the deck. And we just couldn't figure out how to do the 4 negates consistently, so we were just giving up on it. We just decided FTK was the easier way to go. But I think if I was able to learn that combo, I'd try and find a way to play a version of that deck that Brendan Beckman played at the YCS last weekend.
Yeah, that would be really cool. If the Pendulum Magicians do
Of
hang
course,
around.
yeah. If we have this format for any longer than anybody wants it to be, basically. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's more or less my thoughts on it.
Yeah, sure.
I was pretty disappointed that the other guys couldn't top. They were so close, but they just one of them bricked game 3. I think he opened 4 high scaled in an instant fusion, which is just unfortunate. And then the other one I think lost a die roll against Draco, and then didn't see his side cards game 2, or game 3, which was just unfortunate.
Yeah, it can't be helped.
Yeah, exactly. Things like that happen.
Yeah. Well, thanks very much for telling us about the deck and all of your thoughts on it. Are there any shout-outs that you'd like to make?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to my team Crew Bros. We had 2 players in top 8, and we also had 9th and 10th place. It was really, really agonizing. We were so close to taking almost a sweep for the top cut. But yeah, we the other guy who topped, Dan, he played an Inferno deck with the new Layer of Darkness cards.
Yeah, I saw that.
Which is really, really interesting deck. We were testing it for the past 2 weeks or so, trying to see if we could optimize it for the event. There's still a couple of things that need to be worked out, but it really was solid for the event, and I think it's something that people should be watching out for.
Yeah.
And then shout outs to all the guys on Weebs and Farmers. We're really sad Niall couldn't show up for the day. He's our team leader. We have a group photo and he wasn't there, so we were all really, really sad. But yeah, shout outs to all the guys who came over to the event. There was about, I think there's something in the region of about 6 or 7 guys from the UK that came over. Brad Wood for winning the event. He played Draco, and he knows that deck better than anybody else I've ever seen who's played it. He's honestly ridiculous with it. And then also to the other guys who came over. There's too many of them to name, but they were all great fun to hang around with. And also shout-outs to Dan, again, for running a fantastic event. We're hoping to have another open, hopefully soon. And this is the biggest one we've had in a long time, and we've gotten people coming over for the first time in a while, so hopefully we can build on this and have an even bigger event for the next one.
Yeah, that would be really cool. Great, well, congratulations on getting 6th place, and thanks very much for coming on again.
No, thank you for having me. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll see you again in the future. Thanks for watching this episode of Top Deck. If you have any comments or suggestions that you would like to make, leave them in the comment section down below. Check out the description for details of how you can get involved in this series. You can enter by voice interview, or instead you could just send all of your information over Facebook Messenger. Anything like that will be absolutely fine. If you want to see anything in particular from the upcoming series, then be sure to get in touch, and I'll see you guys in the next video.